Hello, I'm Jim Fallon, Chief Content Officer.
And I'm Alex Badia, the Style Director.
We're at the newly renovated Waldorf Astoria Hotel, and this is Savage Fashion.
We have a great show today. We're going to talk about the news of the week. Also, we have one of the kings of New York Fashion Week, Michael Kors. So let's get going.
Yes, so obviously we're going to talk about the recent results of the leading luxury groups, the news that Marc Jacobs is on the selling block, and the schedules, which we're all looking forward to, of this fall shows for spring 2026. The Kering results came out, the latest, of course, profits were way down, 46% because of Gucci. LVMH was earlier last week. Their numbers were also somewhat disappointing with declines at Dior, but an increase at Louis Vuitton. What was interesting was the market reacted positively to the LVMH numbers. The shares rose slightly the next day. But obviously, they're in a significant transition period at Dior with Jonathan Anderson arriving. The group that so far has bucked the trend, a little bit Moncler, their sales increased 1%, but really Richemont, thanks to watches and jewelry, has surprised everybody. Hermes results are next, so if their momentum continues, it will be another string in Hermes just going from strength to strength.
One thing that really sort of surprised me is the low expectations of Wall Street.
Yeah, right. For the shares to go up the next day, absolutely. And I think it was also the idea that with all the design changes, particularly at Dior, I think they're expecting Jonathan Anderson to have almost an immediate impact come next season. Obviously, he showed in men's. We were both there.
Yes.
Those clothes won't be in the store, though, until spring.
A little expensive.
A little expensive. But it'll be interesting to see, to your point, the expectations were so low. What will also be interesting, which is yet to be fully determined, is what impact the tariffs are going to have.
Right.
The wines and spirits division is going to be hit pretty hard by the 15% tariffs. That's higher than what they've already been paying. We're still trying to work out what that means for the fashion division, but it also will be higher for the beauty products. So, the Dior beauty and things that go in, definitely.
Well, the good news keep on coming. Right. Marc Jacobs, what's going on there?
That was a bit of a surprise. There had been reports we heard early in the year, January, that it was on the selling block. They denied it firmly. Marc and others still own a stake in that brand. The most surprising thing is the people they're talking to potentially buy it.
Who are they talking to?
The brand management firms. So it's really then going to become a licensed business. What that means for Marc himself, given that he designs the very extravagant, imaginative, creative collection.
Lovely, by the way.
Lovely.
I'm super into it.
He remains one of the most imaginative and dynamic designers in the business. What that means for the commercial collection, which the brand management companies are most interested in, it remains to be seen. They also reportedly want $1 billion, so that's another. When you have that, you can buy
you definitely. I find that all this a little bit depressing, to be honest, because Marc Jacobs is such a power in the fashion world to me still. It's great. And to just think of like license and all this business model is just annoying to me.
It's the question as to, where does the business and the creativity balance out? And
Totally.
you have an immensely creative designer. How do they turn that into a business? LVMH has not had the best track record investing in American brands.
No.
So
Donna Karan, for example.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
We all remember how that went.
No.
Not great.
No.
It's kind of sad, though.
But okay, what are you looking forward to with the Paris and Milan schedules in London? Milan's not out yet. One day it will come. But.
I just want to survive at this point. That's my main objective, because just looking at
don't kill me in the subway.
Exactly. Sorry about that still. Oopsie. Paris is going to be insane. I saw the calendar when it came out. Was it yesterday or the day before? I just couldn't believe it. The amount of major breaking news shows. Right. So for us, it's going to be hell. Yeah. Right. Basically, but it's super exciting to see what's going to happen. We saw a little bit of a preview with Celine men's, with Dior men's, but I just think the cat is not out of the bag. So we're going to see, what are we going to see? I'm not sure. I mean, I think that Jonathan is really going to surprise us all. I've been hearing rumblings that the Proenza guys are doing very interesting at Loewe, because I've been talking to some first designers around, and that's the rumor. So I want everyone to succeed. It's an American time in Paris as well.
Yes.
So I'm just really excited to see what's going to happen with Chanel, what's going to happen to all these major brands. And I personally want everything to be great.
But I think what the schedule shows, we have not seen Milan yet, but what we hear about Milan, and obviously the New York schedule is out, is just how Paris is dominating the fashion scene. I mean, New York, there's no Carolina Herrera. They're showing in Madrid.
They are.
I mean, people are moving around. There's no Tommy Hilfiger. Milan, the Gucci show is really, from what we understand, not a show. It's going to be a film. The news just broke. The Versace show is going to be a very low-key presentation, not a show. So it just Paris just keeps distancing itself. There's an increasing gap between Paris and the other cities, and that's a danger for fashion.
Yes, but I just want to say one thing, how with the negative results of the big conglomerates, it makes me want to think, and I want to ask this to Michael, is this the end of hype as a formula that has been so successful in the past years? Milan is distancing itself from that formula. We saw that already in men's. The fact that they're doing presentations, centering around craftsmanship, in clothes that you can wear, things that are really not only related to culture and celebrity and influencer. I think Milan is taking a different turn, that it might pay on the long term, that is going to be more about fashion and clothes, It
also, made in Italy, also might win out in the long term because the prices might not be insane like some of the French brands are charging. Basically.
Oh my God!
And you're seeing
$200,000 for a Dior men's coat.
Right. I mean, and look at what Ralph Lauren is. The success at Ralph Lauren by doing high quality product, but not at ridiculous price points. And I think that also could be a niche for American fashion as well.
Completely. I think there is an opportunity for American sportswear as well.
Definitely. And speaking of the schedule, our next guest, Michael Kors, is kicking off the entire season, New York Fashion Week, and we're looking forward to hearing from him about the season ahead, but also his illustrious career.
Yeah, he's really fun. We're here with Michael Kors, and we're just going to jump into it. You were just talking to me about your childhood.
Yes, of course.
High school moments. So let's talk about fashion memories, early fashion memories.
Oh, well, I think, number one, I am an only child. I'm an only child who grew up with very young parents in a fashion-obsessed house.
Did you know that growing up, that your mother was fashion obsessed and your grandmother?
Listen, the funny thing is, I didn't realize that normal table conversation was not about how to pack for a weekend trip. But I always think that, probably what happened for me, I was the only kid in the whole family. It wasn't just that I was an only child. So I was around adults. There were people who were in the fashion business. My grandfather was in the textile business. My grandmother was a high school principal who stopped at Loehmann's every day on her way home to see if she could find something from Bill Blass or Oscar de la Renta with the label cut out. And they loved to travel. Everyone loved to travel. They talked about it constantly. And they talked about fashion. Plus, I guess for me, I became my mother's shopping buddy.
Right, okay. Yeah.
I was the shopping buddy.
Yeah,
right.
So, and she also, I think they never actually acknowledged that I was actually a child. So my mom would
How lucky.
Oh, I mean, literally, I was picking wallpaper out at 6.
I was going to say, at age 5, what do you think about this?
Well, I ended up, I mean, it's now become legend, but it is true story. My mom, when she got remarried, I was 5, and I ended up sort of changing her wedding gown, which my grandmother did not understand.
Right.
My grandmother was like, he's 5. Why are you listening? And my mom was kind of like, I think he's right.
Right.
Plus, I think the other thing that happened in my family, I loved the shopping experience. I loved listening to all of them. And then they were all very specific growing up as far as their point of view and their sense of style. It wasn't this uniform sort of thing. The women in particular were very, this one was super trendy, this one was super classic, this one was glamorous, this one was low key.
Right.
So I kind of got to see the Almodovar, or like that.
Women on a verge.
Right, exactly, that whole crazy group. Right. And then my grandfather, I think, he was a salesman of that era. And, as the Italians, when they talk about Bella Figura, he very much cared about, he was bald, but he had his hair cut twice a week. The manicure was perfect.
Right.
He literally, I remember being 7 or 8, and he said to me, he said, I'm going to show you how to pack for a business trip. And I was 7, but he said, make sure you have a raincoat that has a button-out lining. Make sure you buy quality. Don't buy too many things. Buy less. So that sort of set me on the road. Plus,
once you realized what a business trip was,
I knew what it was. Well, and then I think also my mom, she knew that I love to draw. I love to read. These were the two things that obsessed me. And so she said, fine, keep the pencil, keep the crayon in your hand. And I started sketching, and I realized now when I look back, it wasn't just fashion. For a minute, I remember thinking, maybe I'll be an architect.
Right.
I thought.
You never had second thoughts about doing something else?
The architect thing, I realized, terrible at math.
Yes.
So we're not going to be an architect.
Yes.
Sketching very modernistic cars when I was little. Again, absolutely no skills that would have made sense.
Engineering. Yes.
And then, listen, the two things that were my love growing up were fashion, and I loved the theater.
That's what I thought, yes.
I always loved the theater. I was bitten early. They took me to see, the first thing I saw was Ethel Merman, of all things.
I was going to ask there.
Ethel Merman, like legendary. Of course, you're 5 years old. You have no idea that she's legendary. Right. I'm like, this lady's loud and whatever.
So formative, though.
Oh, it was.
Right.
And so I did television commercials when I was a child, and I was comfortable doing it. Then my mom stopped me from doing it. She didn't want me sort of being like a showbiz kid. Right. She wanted me to go to school and, quote, be normal. And then I took some acting lessons when I was a teenager here in Manhattan. And I was probably 14 and 15. And there was always this sort of tug of war that I loved the theater, but I realized, number one, I really wasn't interested in a script.
Oh, okay.
And also, I couldn't dance.
Right.
I was not a great singer.
Right.
And as soon as I would leave acting class, what did I do? I went shopping.
Oh, yeah. Right.
There was fashion. Right. It was always going to be fashion. And then I by the time I was a teenager, I started, I sold freelance. I did some sketches for someone who was actually a jeans manufacturer. Okay. Sold them. My mom was like, "What are you going to do with the money?" And I said, "I spent it already." She's like, "Well, what'd you do?" And I said, "Well, I actually bought a Cartier tank watch."
Oh my God!
And I was 16.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
My mother was like, "Well, you might want to save the money." And I said to her, "No, but I had to have this watch."
Yeah.
And so I worked through high school, and I was, I think, always very entrepreneurial. I was a manager at a tennis club on Long Island.
Okay. Wow.
And I ended up being the buyer for the pro shop.
Obviously.
I was the buyer for the pro shop because at the time, I remember the guy who was actually running the pro shop, he said, "Why aren't we selling any of the clothes that we have in the pro shop?" And I said, well, they're unattractive.
Oh.
And he said, all of the women who come in here seem to love you. You're sitting and sketching and talking to them. And because I'd be sitting and sketching and they'd say, what's that? And he said, why don't you do the buy?
Oh.
How
So
old were you then?
17.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect age.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was great.
It was all good, all good. And then once I knew that's what I was going to do, I never looked back. It was immediately for me. By that point, my family moved to Los Angeles. They wanted me to move to LA, and I said no. I've got to be in New York. Of course. I've got to be at FIT. I want to be in the thick of it, and I jumped in, head first.
That was brave, though.
Oh,
with
yeah.
your family moving.
They left.
2,000
They
miles
left,
away.
but I mean, listen. By the time I was 17, I don't know that I was the typical 17.
Right.
I've been working.
Of course.
Well, you've been treated as an adult since
They
age
let
5,
me.
so,
I mean, now I think to myself, it's a little shocking. Now it probably people will say it was child abuse, but my mom was modeling and I was modeling at the same time. And I remember once I had to go to a casting call and my mother was finishing a job and I think my agent was going to meet me at the casting call. I think I was 6. And can you imagine that she put me in a taxi by myself?
Wow.
And
Different
said to the driver, the cab driver, take him to X address. And then my mom and the agent met me there. Now, of course, people would be like,
yeah, no, what are you doing?
So
Yeah.
no, I mean there was no fear. I was pretty fearless.
Did you feel, since you had been doing sketching for so long, that you needed to go to FIT?
I have to say, I thought that you had to do everything by the book.
Right.
I thought, okay, you go to FIT, you graduate, you become an assistant picking up pins, working for another designer, you learn the ropes. I always knew I'd have my own
You
business.
did. That was my next
Always.
question. Right.
No, I had. There was never a doubt. There was gonna be Michael Kors. It was gonna be my own thing, but I did not know that it would happen so fast.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, I always say, are you open to possibility?
Oh,
So it's not luck necessarily. It's just, are you open to possibility?
You got it.
And then of course when I got to school, I got to FIT in 1977. It was the year that Studio 54 opened.
Great time. I was going to say great time.
It was.
My God. Yes.
I walked into Studio 54 and I just turned 18 and I walked in and I looked around and I thought, I'm home.
Yeah, so I was just
This
gonna
is
say,
it.
These are my people.
And seeing the designers who I admired out and the women they dressed, whether it was Halston or Calvin or Stephen Burrows, they'd all be out and about, and I just thought, this is everything. I mean, I was glued to WWD as a teenager. I would buy my WWD at the newsstand at the Long Island Railroad train station.
Wow, yeah.
And the I column, I'm like, what is Nan Kempner wearing?
Right,
And in my mind, I knew this was my world. I knew this would be my world. And school, I got antsy very quickly. And I just kept thinking, God, I want more. I want more. I want it faster. And I needed a job in school. I needed the money.
Right.
So I at first thought, I want to get a job at Bergdorf's.
Why not, right?
Why not? And they looked at me and they were like, we don't hire part-time students, to work in the store. And I ended up walking into Lothar's on 57th Street. And I started trying on clothes that I couldn't afford.
Yeah. Good tactic.
Yeah, why not? And they said, we're actually looking for part-time salesperson.
Wonderful.
And the next thing I knew, there I was on 57th Street and Fifth Avenue.
But one of the things Alex and I talked about, and it always intrigues me, you said you always knew you would have your own label.
Always.
When did the aesthetic emerge?
Funny enough, I think it's very personal. I am a bit of a contradiction myself.
Right.
I am super casual, but at the same time, I love luxury and I love indulgence. I'm the life of the party or the loner.
Leave me alone.
I'm one of the two. I like to think that I'm level-headed but silly. And so I think I always sort of responded to this idea that people have different sides to them. This yin and yang, the pole.
Totally.
And plus, I did grow up with women who were very specific.
Right.
You know, I mean, my mother cared about style, but she didn't care about fashion.
Okay. Yes.
My grandmother cared greatly about glamour, but she didn't care about fashion.
Right.
But then I had an aunt who, if it was go-go boots, she wore go-go boots. If it was a midriff, she wore midriff.
Oh my
So
God, I would have loved your aunt.
I mean, she wore a bikini top to my bar mitzvah
Oh my God, what's not to love about that?
with matching hip huggers. You know, I mean, so I saw all of that, and I realized that there was something about me that was very pragmatic, but at the same time, I like fun and I like a statement, but I like to balance it. And then I think being in retail and not working for another designer, and then I didn't design, when I was at Lothar's, I didn't design a season. I literally just made whatever I was in the mood for.
Right.
So if it was raining, I made raincoats.
Right.
If it was a really hot week, I made sundresses or shorts.
Right.
I made bathing suits. I made evening gowns. I just did whatever I wanted, and you got this immediate response. And I got to see that, in fact, women will pretty much always have this yin and yang pull.
Right.
And I think also I am inherently, and I'm proud of it, I am inherently American. I am an inherently New York kind of guy. So I always care about movement, practicality, comfort, all of those things. You know, I came of age during that moment. I think American fashion was having a great moment.
right.
It was exploding. And, you know, when I first started, though, you know, it was hard to be small and breaking in. But I never took no for an answer. And I think I was validated constantly by meeting clients and meeting the women, you know, and especially when I started leaving New York and I started going to personal events or trunk shows and all of that, you'd meet all of these women. You're like, I'm onto something here. And so I think that formed the idea of it. Listen, also, I'm a Swedish Jewish person. I mean, this is like,
a weird combination.
that's a weird kind of combo. I think there's me and Scarlett Johansson. We're about it. So maybe there
And
was
neither of you live in Sweden. So
right.
No,
So
she's fun.
yeah, I mean, she's funny and fun, and she's a
fun.
New Yorker.
Yeah. Yes.
But it is
True,
that
true.
yin yang.
Right.
It's the yin yang.
But then, now talking about how Paris Fashion Week is full of Americans.
Yes.
There was another time.
Yes.
The Paris Fashion Week was full of Americans.
Yes, indeed.
You talk about being a New Yorker. You go to Paris. You work for Celine. How was that?
Oh my God. Well, in a million years,
Yes.
although I knew I was going to do my own thing, have my own label, first off, no one ever thought that fashion was truly international.
I understand that. Yes.
Fashion wasn't international. For the most part, if you were an American designer, you catered to the American market. Yes, if you were Saint Laurent, that was global.
Right.
But, you know, the Japanese designers were for Japan, and everyone was sort of in their own little pocket.
And there weren't the single designer stores there are now.
Never,
Yeah.
never. I never thought that, you know, we'd have stores around the world. But when I got to Paris, at first I was just like, oh my God, like, do I have to make this Parisian?
Right.
Like, I'm like, is it, and is my view of what I think is Parisian, was it more formal? But then at the end of the day, I thought to myself, well, they didn't hire me as an American New York designer to be faux French.
Right.
I'm American.
Yeah. Right.
So the funny thing is, I think when we first started the first season, two things happened. Number one, I was told by someone in corporate that I was perhaps a little too American in that I wore sneakers every day, that I had a Coca-Cola with my meals.
Oh, I love that look.
They said, they should kind of maybe polish it up and have a glass of wine. But then when I really got to know a lot of the people in the industry, but also just women in Paris, I realized that many French women, in fact, they love sportswear.
Yes.
They love a great blazer. They
Yes.
love a great pair of trousers. They love a shirt. And so there we were. And so I think what Paris did for me, though, during that whole process, number one, I do think that the French are not as pragmatic and practical as Americans. So they're willing to, say, you know what, I'll buy a white winter coat.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Why not?
Why
Why
not?
not? Right.
Whereas
Love.
women in New York would say, oh, I don't know,
It'll
I'm
get
afraid
dirty.
it's going to
Yeah.
get dirty.
Yes.
So I it pushed me to be a little bit less reluctant to be more indulgent.
Yes.
That was a big thing. And then for the first time, I was really thinking about a global customer.
That's great.
interesting.
That's a
That
good
was
lesson.
the huge
That's a
change.
huge lesson.
Right.
So it was no longer how will this be in Chicago only or LA. It was like, well, will it work in Kuala Lumpur?
Correct.
What's happening in, I don't know, in Rio,
Right.
in Bangkok. So it opened that up. And then also I saw the power of accessories.
Right.
I mean,
Right. Yeah.
That's a major lesson.
That
Lesson.
was
Yeah.
the big
Yeah.
lesson
Yeah.
was it didn't matter what the weather was. It didn't matter how old you were, what size you were. You could be petite, you could be tall, you could be round, you could be tiny. But the right bag, the right glasses, the right shoes, it was more universal, which was perfect for me, quite honestly, because I am very casual.
Right.
So and I think back to the 70s when people really lived for the most part in jeans and shirts and sweaters, but your watch, your bag, your glasses, they were the signifiers. So that was the big lesson learned at my 6.5 years in Paris.
I mean, dressing for the weather is just so boring to me. I can't do it.
No.
I totally agree. So highs, lows. You even at one point, even when nearly bankrupt.
Yep.
What keeps you going?
Well, I think there's really the most important thing for me, it's as a human being and as a designer. I am the most inherently curious person in the world.
Okay.
I am very New York. I have terrible FOMO. I want to go.
do too.
I'm bad. I'm bad. Restaurant opens. I want to go there first.
Yes, yes.
I want to see the show in previews. I need to see the movie in the theater. I read about an exhibit. I've got to go see it. So I think what keeps you going is the fact that the coolest thing about fashion is it truly is plugged into what's happening in everything we do. And when people say, oh, I'm not interested in fashion, well, actually, that is their statement.
Right.
They still had to get dressed and put something on. So it's the curiosity, and I think it's empathy. If I have one thing that I think has made me successful and I'm most proud of as a human being is without empathy and being able to put yourself in someone else's situation. I don't think you can be a great human being, but I also don't think you could be a successful designer.
Interesting.
Because then I think you're just, well, are you only designing for yourself?
Right.
Or your small group of people?
Right.
You know, you can hang out with your friends in a room and say, well, we all love it.
Exactly.
You know,
I mean, that happens all
a
the
lot.
time.
All
That's
the time.
constant.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
constant. And I never had that. So I think I've always had that that sense of curiosity. It keeps going because things are always changing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just when you think you know the script changes.
But is that also what led you to Project Runway? Because you did that at a time when the
I didn't want to
fashion
do it
world-
at first.
Okay. The fashion world was
Just-
kind of like,
just so you know,
no,
I have to
reality
say, I
TV.
was such a fan of you in that show.
So what happened, you know, I think at the time we were about to launch Michael Kors.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I think rather than this sort of very, very rarefied collection piece that had been Michael Kors at that point for, you know, a few decades, suddenly there was going to be product that was going to be accessible to a broader range of people. So this was not just going to be the Upper East Side and Beverly Hills and the North Shore of Chicago. This was going to go out there. But when I first heard about it, I was like reality television.
Right.
I thought it was like, is this Survivor?
Exactly.
Like,
Because that was the moment.
that was
Right,
what
that
it
was the moment.
was, like people eating insects, and I kept thinking, no, I can't. And to be honest with you, I think that fashion has not always been portrayed in the best light
No.
Agreed.
in film,
Rarely.
on
Agreed.
television.
It's so annoying.
It's and it makes it a joke.
Yeah.
Ignorance.
And I think people think, oh, are fashion people silly? And you know, but then when I heard the premise, and I said, you know what? I said, the show's gonna, I don't know if it'll be successful. I said, it'll pull the curtain back and show people the process. But I also thought for me, I thought that people would get to actually understand why Michael Kors' product looks the way it looks when they meet me.
Right.
Because they're going to hear what I think about fashion.
Right.
That was an easier way for them to get that story rather than reading an article in a magazine. At the time, there was nothing online.
Yeah.
So it did. People said, "Wait a minute. Oh, actually, you know what? He's funny, but he's actually very serious too. He's both."
Yeah.
And it coincided with suddenly that yes, you could walk into the mall near your house and Michael Kors was there. And I knew we were going to actually be a success when I ran into Rashida Jones, and Rashida said to me, "Oh, my mom and I love watching Project Runway." And I said, "Oh, Peggy Lipton's watching?" I said, "That's great." And she said, "My dad watched." And I said, "No, wait a minute.
right.
Quincy Jones watched the show." I said, I know we've got something here." And then, of course, now, all these years later, the show is back on the air.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually, I am going to come back for
back.
one guest spot.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Oh no,
But
I want you
that's
to
just
come
good.
back
I
for
am.
full
I'm
season.
doing a guest spot.
But that,
Yeah, I spoke to Nina about
you
it.
were
Exactly.
Michael Kors
Yeah.
before Project Runway.
But I was Michael Kors for a very elite group.
That was my point. And suddenly you become Michael Kors, stopped at airports, chased at airports,
Everywhere.
whatever. How did you deal with that, ego-wise and everything?
Yeah.
You know, I have to say, what's funny about it, you know, I still say fashion fame is good fame.
Right.
Because fashion fame gets you a table in a restaurant.
Right.
You know, all of that. But I didn't really understand what the television thing was going to do. And Deborah Messing said to me, it was the height of Will and Grace. And she looked at me and she said, "Get ready." And I said, "For what?" So I said, well, I said, what? She said, when you're on television, she said, imagine that people are in their underwear eating ice cream out of the container, hanging out with you. She said, there is no barrier.
Right.
She said, they now really know you. And she said, and you're not playing a character, it's you.
You.
It's you.
But I will say, for the most part, I mean, funny things happen. I mean, I had women take shoes off and have me sign their shoes on the street.
Exactly.
I had a woman, I signed her pockets on her butt.
Oh, geez.
Like, she put her butt in my face and said, sign my butt. I was like, all right. I could do it. And I think it just opened up the world to, I think, understanding fashion. I think the show has been tremendously helpful. I had parents tell me that their children, who were 5 or 6, were watching the show and said, "Oh, this is what I want to do."
Oh, wow.
Like, that's incredible.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So, but no one ever. I mean, I never had to deal with being Britney Spears
Yeah,
or
right.
Yeah.
anything like that. It was all good from that perspective.
It always makes me laugh. One of the times when I was in London, you did a personal appearance at Harvey Nichols. And I think Christy was in the show, and Linda. You did an in-store show, and I think it might have been Christy and Linda, etc. And we were just talking about your trunk shows, and you were reminiscing about how a woman came out of the dressing room once in a blouse saying, "Is this too sheer?" And she had no trousers on. And you were
Oh,
like,
no. But you know what? I mean, I still, to this day, I just did an event with Nordstrom's in Seattle. And one woman said to me, she's like, "I can't believe you still do this."
Yes.
So I looked at her and I said to her, I said, if I lock myself in my office,
Right.
I don't really get this firsthand information about what's working, what's not working, what's missing out there. Go to a city where the vibe is different,
Right.
whole different attitude. And that's why travel is so important. People say to me, "Aren't you tired of traveling?" And I'm like, "No, I'm never tired of traveling." I mean, we literally will go from, the fjords of Norway to South Africa to London.
Right.
I'll see 4 shows in London in 2
Yeah.
days. And I mean, how could I not go see Rachel Ziegler doing a Vita on the street?
Oh my God, I heard it's
right,
amazing.
exactly.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
I can't
No.
wait.
Oh my God, I cannot wait.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Survivor, made me think of fashion as a whole, especially
Yes.
New York Fashion Week.
Yes.
Tell me your thoughts about New York Fashion Week now.
Well, I have to tell you, I think, we have to know that the internet has upended the entire industry.
Right.
And, call me crazy, but I think if you cannot imagine someone, somewhere, wearing something, then I think you should just be a painter.
Right.
Like, here's a paintbrush, go paint.
Right.
Great,
Right.
love it.
Have fun. Yeah.
But my reaction is that, the internet is, great and disastrous at the same time for the world at large and for our industry. Because a lot of people now think, "Oh, I've got to get attention. How do I get attention? How do I get attention?" So you get attention online. Unfortunately, sometimes it's not going to be from, the most beautifully cut jacket, the most impeccable shirt, the perfect sweater. And when I look around and I see what people look like, not fashion showgoers,
No.
just people.
Everyday people. Right.
Everyday, and even everyday affluent people
Yeah.
all around the world. I don't know that people are answering people's needs.
Right.
People don't want to wear boring uniforms, but then on the other side of the coin, they don't want to think so ridiculous that they can't move, they can't sit. I think what's happened is the cities have, first off, I think American designers, going to get in trouble for this.
Too late.
I think that American designers need to show in New York.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I think British designers need to show in London.
Right.
I think Italian designers need to show in Italy.
Yeah.
The French need to show in Paris. And then occasionally, if you want to do something off the, off the grid and
Destination show.
Great,
Right.
that's a whole different thing. Because I think there's strength in numbers. I think we are a community. And I do think that, we as American designers, the world is casual.
Right.
The world does not wear ball gowns.
Yeah.
The red
Right.
carpet is not
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
It's not life.
We invented it.
Yeah.
We invented it. We put people in t-shirts,
Right.
sneakers, jeans, comfortable clothes. I mean, there's no hoodies without American designers.
Right.
So I think that, some American designers think they have to not look American
Right.
Totally.
To compete with the
to
French.
compete with the
Yeah,
French.
right.
And you know what? I remember when there were this sort of more specific, it's a long time ago, when you'd say, well, America is where people buy the clothes that they wear on a day in, day out basis.
Yes.
So that's New York. London is for eccentricity and for what's out there. Japan is for what's more esoteric. Paris is the capital of the couture.
Right.
Milan is the capital of tailoring.
Right.
I actually think the root of all that was great.
Right.
That doesn't mean you should be locked into only one thing. If you want to wear a gown, it doesn't have to only be from Paris.
Right.
And if you want to wear a great pair of jeans, they don't only have to be from New York.
Yes.
But I think people have to be true to themselves, to where they're showing. Unfortunately, also New York fashion. What's happened? Well, the major advertisers have left New York.
Right.
So it's very hard in today's world. People have diminished budgets to travel. So what do you do?
Right.
So I understand. We had a far more international audience in New York, before COVID.
Yeah. Yes.
When
Yeah.
COVID happened, everyone's budgets got chopped again. So I'd like to see everyone back together, showing in New York together. I think it makes it more powerful. The established, the new, the young, up and coming.
Yeah.
I think we're a city of such great diversity. America is such a place of great diversity, and Fashion Week should be that.
Right.
And it's what you said about your experience at Celine. You realize they hired you to be an American designer, not to be faux French.
Well,
So-
let's be frank. I mean, in one season, you have Narciso at Loewe, you have Mark at Vuitton, and you have me at Celine.
Right.
Obviously, and then the Brits at the same time.
Totally.
That McQueen
Yep.
and
Galliano.
Galliano came in.
Right.
Well, none of us were French.
Right.
And I don't think there was an expectation that any of us should be faux French.
Right.
So I think that I'd like to see a little bit more of people showing where they're based.
Right.
I think it's helpful. I understand, business is business. People go for where the attention is or where they think they'll garner more attention.
Yes. Attention.
Attention. But that's the world.
Before you got here, we were speaking about hype and the fact that LVMH and Kering and the negative results are, well, not negative, but not the great results financially. Do you think is this the end of the hype era? Do you think we pushed it too far?
Well, the problem with hype is, listen, I just went to the Coldplay concert where
Oh
wow.
my God!
we were
Oh,
there.
you were there?
No,
See-
we were
oh,
there.
no.
We were there. We were there.
Where was your photo?
We
I
were
wish I
there. We were
With your
there.
hands like that?
No, we were there. I was like, oh my God. But what I thought was, and of course, I of course didn't even think that was going to be anything that would,
Right.
go viral. Who knew?
Who knew?
But
The world we live in.
With the world we live in.
Exactly.
But we were walking around, and I was kind of excited to see this very, very diverse, from an age perspective, audience. That there were 15-year-olds, there were 50-year-olds, there were 80-year-olds, there was every age. But there was an army of girls wearing the tiniest sequin mini skirts
Yeah.
in history.
No, in history.
They were 11
It's a
inches
belt.
long. It was a belt.
Yeah.
Now, I certainly like a short skirt, and I've
Yeah.
shown many of them over the years.
Yep.
But I looked around and I thought, I have a weird feeling that these skirts are very inexpensive.
Oh, right.
So I Googled the skirt, and I find that the skirt is $10.
That's a problem.
Yeah, from a certain.
And to me, this is a huge problem.
It's a problem.
And it's the hype, and then the discarding it,
right.
and it's $10. So what do I care? Well, I think what's happened is the young have gotten so obsessed with hype and disposability that any sense that something should actually have endurance and be sustainable has flown out the window. Adults, on the other hand, are sort of like, oh God, enough with the hype already.
Yes.
I'm just going to do my own thing.
Yes.
You know, but that can get people frozen, because I think what we have to do in fashion, I always say, is like find this weird balance where it's enticing that it's new, but at the same time feels logical.
Right.
When it's just hype for hype's sake, I don't think it works. But that being said, fashion revolves around newness.
Right.
Newness.
But newness that makes logical sense. And I feel the same way, you know, when a lot of people are saying, oh, you know, what's going on? Like the designers, like everyone's changing. There's a new designer here. There's a new designer here. I think that's great when the designer makes sense at that house.
Yes.
If it's just for the sake of newness, I don't know, it might explode and blow up for a minute, and then it'll be gone.
I
But-
think we're going to see what happens very soon.
Very much so.
We don't know. You know, I mean, listen, that is, you know, even at the time, as I said, I never thought I'd be showing in Paris. I mean, please, at the Louvre, like, I'm from Long Island. I mean, and
It begins with an L.
Yeah, I mean-
Hello.
Louvre, Long Island.
I ended up, of course, it was a good match. You know, it was 6.5 years. It was a long time. Mark was at Vuitton for quite a long time.
Yes.
Narciso was not at Loewe for a long time.
Yes.
It wasn't the right
fit.
The right fit. So I think the newness is great, but it has to be the right fit.
And also, Loewe wasn't Loewe when Narciso was there.
No one knew
was
what
a-
it was.
It was a Spanish
no one knew what it
leather
was.
house
Oh, no,
with
no
the
one-
fragrance business.
No
That
one,
was
no
it.
one
Yeah.
knew what it was. Most people couldn't pronounce
Yes.
it.
Right.
No one had any idea.
Yeah.
You know,
But you said something earlier, and switching gears slightly, your empathy.
Yes.
God's love we deliver.
Mm-hmm.
You're a huge supporter of that. How did you get it? How did you choose that? And I mean, you've been doing it for a long time and given substantial amounts of money to it, and a lot of people would have stopped by now.
well, I have to say, I'm going to take it back to fashion, actually.
Yes.
I am always doing a makeover of a room,
Yeah.
a person. I'm always looking at everything, you know, in a sort of analytical way. I'm like,
Now I'm
oh.
self-conscious. But that's
No,
okay.
no, no. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
I'm always like, you know, and back in the 80s, I didn't have any money. My business was small. I was building it. And no one knew who I was. And then when the AIDS crisis exploded to such a degree that friends, coworkers, people I looked up to, an entire generation of people were disappearing on a daily basis. And everyone sort of, you were like, well, what are we going to do about it? I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. And there was no feasible answer. And at the time, someone said, oh, there's this little organization. It's called God's Love We Deliver. And I said, well, what is it? Is it religious? Like, what? What does that mean? And they said, well, there are people who are homebound and they never see anyone and they have no access to food. And they said, well, without nutrition, there's no possibility that they can survive. And I said, that's so simple. That's like a makeover.
Right.
That's
Right.
that's the makeover
Right.
that you actually could just roll your sleeves up and do something. So I volunteered for them, and then we started seeing, that things were getting better here in the States with the AIDS crisis by the time the mid-90s came, and we had medications. But we then started seeing that there were people all around us here in one of the wealthiest cities in the world who had a myriad of illnesses, and they were alone, and there was no access to food, and God's love, no matter what happened, they stepped up. Oh, cancer diagnosis, we'll deal with that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, your kids need to eat too, we'll deal with that. So that always intrigued me. And then I think my business started getting bigger and global, and I started to think to myself, how do we do something like this on a global scale?
Right.
And the World Food Program through the United Nations, I remember sitting down with them for an initial meeting, and they said, well, we can actually get food delivered wherever it needs to go. And I said, in the middle of a war zone? They said 95, 99% of the time we can.
I hope so.
And then I said, maybe we can take this social media following that we have and all of these customers all around the world, and how do we teach people how to be philanthropic without being wealthy?
Right. Interesting.
So post a picture of yourself in the t-shirt.
Yes.
Skip a cup of coffee. It's $5.
Yeah.
$5 is a month's worth of school meals.
Wow.
When you go to a place like Nicaragua or Sri Lanka,
Right.
the list goes on. Girls were not being sent to school. And I kept saying, what do you mean? And they were like, well, when people are in this situation, they cannot afford to send all the kids to school. So they're sending their sons to school. The daughter stays home. Well, the minute there was a meal at school, the daughter went to school. I was like, oh, simple.
Right.
So that really became a way for us to handle this in a bigger scale. And then also just what I see in New York is also just supporting communities that need support.
LGBTQ.
The center.
Right.
Oh my God, I was there when Bette Midler gave you the award.
I mean,
that was
Alex,
lovely, yeah?
mean,
Doesn't get better than that.
and the reality is now more than ever, they need the support.
Yes.
Theater that's nonprofit.
Right.
It's, roundabout when I think to myself, well, you know what? We want the next generation to see great theater. And the city's been incredible for me. The opportunities that I have had here in New York have been remarkable. So I feel like, you know what? I want to see the next generation have that opportunity. That's what's so important to me.
Interesting.
Well, that sounds like the perfect ending.
Exactly. So
Yes, my God,
Except-
thank you so much.
One more
Yes,
question.
We have one more
Sure,
question.
sure. What's that?
Yes.
which we can answer first if you want.
Yes.
But you go ahead.
The title of the podcast is Savage Fashion. And the question is what's savage fashion to you now? You don't have to answer first. We can
go.
go if you want to have more time.
Savage fashion. I'd like to think, well, there were chic savages, I remember. Mr.
Right, that's where it
Fairchild.
comes from.
I
by the
remember
way.
Mr. Fairchild's book.
Right.
I think I've always thought that the best fashion makes you feel that you can take on anything.
True.
And savage fashion means that it takes someone who's not having the best day, makes them feel stronger, makes them feel more empowered. It takes an empowered person to make them even more empowered, without hopefully being obnoxious. And
Good luck with that.
Fine balance.
but savage means you're ready to take on anything.
Oh my God, I'm going to feel so guilty with what I'm going to say next.
What were you gonna say? Oh my God, Alex,
There's
what were you
been so
gonna
many
say?
problems with seats at runway shows all over the world because brands are favoring VICs as they should,
Right.
And they're cutting some key editors and people.
That's savage.
That's super savage
That
to
is
me
savage.
to have like major people that represent so much. Because let me tell you, I love influencers. I have nothing against them. I have no problem with anyone else that's a YouTuber or the agent. But you need still editors, not for my role to be here forever, but partly too, but also because I think you need a specialist that have had like a major training, and I do think
course.
that it's extremely valuable.
Well, listen,
You know?
I actually, the funny thing is, when I look at our audience at our shows, we have always invited VICs. Always. From word go. And let me tell you, the women who are sitting in our audience, they take very good notes. Very good notes. They are professionals. They know what they're looking at. They know the clothes. They know fabric. They know all of it. Then, of course, the influencer who has an audience that would only actually be aware of it through them. But then people who are professionals, and this goes for everything. This is not just fashion. This goes for theater. This goes for food.
Yes.
I always say it's like a food blogger. Well, I don't know the person.
right.
So, and I don't know what their qualifications are. When I read, I don't know, for years, whether it was, I grew up with Craig Claiborne at the
yes,
Times.
exactly. Right.
And or when Ruth Reichel was at the Times.
Right.
And I knew her taste. I knew where she was coming from. And I think in today's world, you've got to make room for all of it.
Right.
That's the point.
That's the point. There is room. It should be room for everyone.
Well, there has to be.
Right.
There has to
I
be.
agree.
There has to be. Granted, on the other side of the coin, listen, I remember when I had a fashion show, I used to have fashion shows in my showroom in New York where we'd have maybe 60 people.
Right.
That was it. There was no celebrities. There were no celebrities. What's an influencer?
Oh my God! Now it will be a bloodbath.
Yeah.
No, literally, I actually remember we had one show that it was so overcrowded in the showroom that we had people in our kitchen and then we had people in the bathroom and we were doing, and I think we seated people by what country they were from.
Oh, right.
And someone said, "Oh, the Italians are in the kitchen." And I said,
Thematical, right?
I said, "What do you mean the Italians are in the kitchen?" They said, "Yes." And they, "Oh, the Japanese are in the waiting area." And, but it was this tight little thing.
Yes.
And it was, I will say the one thing that, and I tell this to customers all the time, when we were just in Seattle, we do put on a live show for them.
Right. Oh. Right.
We put a live show on for the audience, for the women. Because I always say to them, I'm like, this isn't the same thing as you looking at it online.
Fine.
No, I love that.
You need to see, close, touch,
Right.
movement. All of that is so important.
Or on the rail.
Exactly. So, hopefully fashion's supposed to be an inclusive world. This is a party that's more interesting when the audience and the gathering at the party. You don't want a dinner party where everyone's the same.
Yeah. Right.
Well, we're gonna know very soon how savage is becoming.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. What about you, Jim?
I would slightly the shows, but also the results show this first half how savage fashion is from the customer's viewpoint. How quickly it can go up and then
Right.
Well, the funny thing is, I will say what's interesting when, and a lot of people, listen, they don't want to hear it, but I hear women say all the time, there's nothing to buy.
Yeah.
There's nothing to buy.
It's so interesting.
They'll say it all the time. There's nothing to buy.
Right.
There's nothing to buy. And I'm always like, well, did you go shopping? And they're like, well, there's a lot out there, but not a lot of it makes sense.
Right.
And then also, let's be frank, prices have gotten
No.
insane.
Yeah.
Insane. So even the wealthiest person in the world is going to say, wait a minute, come on.
Yeah.
You can't. I mean, it's impossible.
Well, especially if they bought a similar item from the designer or a brand.
Well, and also we also have to acknowledge one other thing. If you've got girls buying, if a 16-year-old buys a $10 skirt and throws it out,
Yeah.
I can tell you, though, on the other side of the coin, that women who are 50, they keep what they own.
Yeah.
They care about it.
Yeah.
They want to keep it. And no, you can't suddenly say, well, it was $2,000 and now it's $8,000.
Yeah, right.
But the pricing is crazy. The shipping and the deliveries don't make sense. We could go on for days and days and days. I mean, it's 1,000 degrees out today, and coats are arriving.
I was just going to say, go buy a coat.
Let me go buy a coat. I mean, come on.
I just sweat thinking about it.
I mean, no one's even considering it. So,
Well, you have to come back for another one.
that's savage. I mean, that
We
is
could talk
savage.
all day long.
That is
Thank
savage.
you, Michael.
Thank you
so
very
much.
much.
Lovely to see you.
Thank you. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Jim, what do you think?
I thought Michael was great. We know him so well.
So
We've
well,
known him
yeah.
for a long time. I thought the empathy aspect of it was fascinating.
I
I've
loved it.
never heard him say that before.
No.
We got a minor scoop. He's returning to Project Runway for one episode. So that's something. But what did you think?
I mean, it's what you said. I love the guy. He's like also so warm and friendly, and he's been such an ally of women's mobility for
Forever.
decades. And to hear him talk about that era of the 70s in New York
Yes.
and the 80s and the early days, and I love his endless curiosity. We can relate.
Yes.
He would have been a great editor, by
Yes,
the way.
right, exactly.
He has a lot of the same attributes that a good editor has. So yeah, I think it was fabulous. I also, this passion that it's very inspiring.
Very.
you know?
And still doing it so passionately for having done it for so long. Like
Yeah.
you and me.
Yeah, like us.
Exactly.
Well, thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Alex. And
Yeah.
on to the next episode of Savage Fashion.
Yeah, we'll see you soon, guys.